in there. The Glen senior football manager, Malachy O'Rourke. Very good morning, Malachy. How are things?
Morning, Shane.
Are you excited for the championship? As excited as we are? John mentioned the word jeopardy there. I mean, it was a brilliant game between Tyrone and Monaghan last weekend. Maybe that jeopardy is lacking, but certainly the match itself was far from lacking.
Yeah, it was very exciting. I suppose it wasn't in keeping with the two previous games in the Ulster Championship, but no, it's sort of a game. I suppose it lost all structures. It went along as well in the second half and towards the end, and that made it more exciting. But there's no doubt from a Monaghan point of view, it was a brilliant day, and I suppose at half time it didn't look likely. It looked as if Tyrone were in control of the game a wee bit, and so now second half now definitely there's obviously massive positives for Monaghan, and they got the result they wanted, and I suppose a lot of questions for Tyrone.
It followed that trend of a lot of those Monaghan-Tyrone matches that you would have overseen when you were Monaghan manager. Similar kind of back and forth. It's always going to be a point or two between the two teams either way at the end of it. Were you confident before the match that Monaghan could get the job done? Because it wasn't like they were being written off by any stretch of the imagination. But I guess that the vibe was, it's Tyrone in Omagh. They've had a good end to the league, and certainly they were favourites for most people heading into the match.
Yeah, that's right. And I suppose Tyrone, there seemed to be a good vibe and a feel-good factor about Tyrone the way they ended the league. Monaghan, on the other hand, I suppose it's well documented that they're missing a couple of players. Obviously Niall Cairns and Ryan McManus are travelling this year, and then a number of fellas injured and one thing or another. So probably went into the game that Tyrone were the favourites, which probably wasn't a bad way for Monaghan to go into the game. Having said that, I suppose then at half time it looked a wee bit, even though there was a bit of a wind, it looked as if Tyrone were in control to some degree. But in fairness to Monaghan, they really turned it around at half time. They obviously were disappointed with the way they played in the first half and felt they hadn't got to the pitch of the game and they hadn't displayed the energy that they wanted and so on. So second half was much better, and the game really turned on its head in the second half. And as I say, it left Monaghan obviously delighted with the way things were going, but Tyrone then would be asking themselves questions as to how they lost it as well.
We've mentioned many times this morning Ryan O'Toole and how he took that goal. Malachy, you as a manager, what did you make of his decision making? Should he have fisted it over the bar, or what do you think?
Yeah, it was a I suppose you could argue both ways, and probably Ryan and listen to a couple of his interviews after the game. It was just very much that he sort of is keen just to grab his chance to seize the moment, if you like, and probably a more experienced player would have been looking at the bigger picture and felt, look, I don't want to take a chance here, I'll just pop it over the bar and we'll go into extra time. Ryan just probably that his mindset was, look, it's an opportunity for me to take my chance. And I suppose the other thing was, unlike other times that chance would arise, you'd usually be under pressure. He actually had a lot of time, and there was nobody really putting him under pressure. He actually could have brought it a wee bit closer, but he took the shot. And I suppose all the time when you're talking to forwards, in particular when you get in a chance to get, you want to hit it low and hard, because obviously it's hard for the keeper to get down, and that's what he did, and obviously had a brilliant outcome.
I think Conor McManus took 9 shots in the match and all 9 went over, 8 of them albeit from frees, but it included that unbelievable point from play in the first half and the ridiculous free at the end out of the hands from the 45 metre line. There's a famous clip of Conor McManus in Hilly Park in Omagh a couple of years ago scoring that unbelievable point from the sideline, and I think the camera then pans to yourself, Malachy, and you're literally just no emotion. It was one of those things where I've seen this a million times already in training.
I'm used to this.
This is normal. So it's probably no surprise that Conor just keeps doing what he's doing.
No, and that's it. And I suppose he puts in the work. He's doing that for years and years, and behind the scenes, he puts so much effort into that. Into honing his craft, if you like. And the other big thing that I've said before is that no better man in that situation. He wants that opportunity. It's not as if he's hesitating or he wants to give it to somebody else. In those clutch moments, you don't want anyone else with the ball. Only Conor, and his kicking was top class, and even the score he got from play in the first half was excellent as well. But I think that's one of the areas that I suppose Tyrone will be annoyed about, that they had so much possession, and I thought in the first half when they were on top, I thought their execution at times wasn't great, and even the shot selection, wasn't great at times. I thought they were kicking from, angles that they could have worked it in closer to goals, and the first half I think they had something like maybe 16 shots at goal and converted 9 from play, whereas Monaghan maybe had about 3. So Monaghan were far more efficient. And I suppose that continued to a degree in the second half as well, even though Monaghan had more chances. But that'll be something that Tyrone will be disappointed about. It's something obviously that Vinny and the boys will have to look at as well, and that Tyrone did create an awful lot of chances in the first half. Monaghan weren't putting enough pressure on them at that stage. And then on the other hand, Tyrone will be disappointed with the amount of frees to give. As you say, Monty got 9 frees, I think it was. So as I say, both teams will there'll definitely be areas both teams will be looking at.
It was obviously a protracted process in hiring Vinny Corey. It seemed to take quite some time in Monaghan, and a lot of counties I think are struggling to get managers on board at the moment. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of things to consider for them in their personal lives. But Vinny Corey is someone you would have managed at county level. So is it any surprise to you whatsoever, given his leadership skills, that he has the job at this stage and that he's already got a championship win under his belt?
No, it's not really. Vinny always stood out as somebody who commanded serious respect in the change room, and every time he spoke, everybody listened. Because they knew that he was talking sense, and that he took the emotion out of it. That he was a great leader. So from that point of view, it is no surprise. I suppose I would think Vinny would feel the same thing. He probably was a wee bit surprised that it happened so quick. First of all, probably when Banty took the job, a few years ago, probably Vinny wasn't really expecting to be involved in that. And then when he was, I think after that ended, it probably wasn't on his immediate radar anyway, to take over the job. But I think the more it went on, and he saw that there was nobody really coming in and take the job. I think it was more a case that Vinny felt that, look, he didn't want to be sitting and watching things unfold or anything else, and he just felt that even though maybe in a perfect world he would have waited a few years, he just felt the time was right. And as well as that, I think people from the outside maybe had got the wrong opinion. Maybe would have felt that the Monaghan team was coming to the end. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I know that there are obviously Conor and Darren Hughes, Carl O'Connell, a few of those boys are coming obviously the end of their careers. But there's an awful lot of good young players. There's a lot of fellas sort of the mid-age range as well. So there's a lot of quality players there, and they've over the years they've been used to a good setup and a good environment where they really want to achieve things, and it's a healthy environment there. And Vinny knew that from being involved in the last few years as well, that there was a lot of good players there, and I suppose that's ultimately then why he stepped in.
You're probably the perfect man to ask about the Monaghan Derry match, given your a lot of the players on both sides. How do you see that one going? It's a big task for Rory Gallagher, but it's one of those games. We saw Monaghan and Derry last year in that game in the Athletic Grounds in Armagh. Cracking game. Derry get over the line by a few points, 3 or 4 points I think it was in the end. How do you think this one's going to go?
Yeah, I suppose it won't be as open, I wouldn't think, as the Tyrone Monaghan game. That game sort of lost its shape towards the end in particular. So I think Derry will be a lot more structured. They will make it a lot more difficult for the Monaghan forwards to operate in. And then Derry as well, they're playing very well. Their teamwork in the forward line is very good. They're able to create scores, a lot of team scores rather than individual scores. So look at obviously Derry will go into the game as favourites, and they've pushed on from last year. Monaghan, on the other hand, I suppose have lost a couple of the players that they had last year. Having said that, the boost Monaghan got from beating Tyrone will be massive to them. So it's set up really well, and it is a very hard one to call. If there's no doubt that Monaghan will have to be stronger defensively. Even last year they conceded 3 goals to Derry. So but. No, look, you'd have to say Derry are the favourites on form at the minute, but I think it's going to be a great semi-final.
It might come down to injuries as well, like Chrissy McKay, a little bit unsure about him. He came off. Conor Glass as well. Malachy, obviously, you know Conor well. Has he really got the time off? That's sort of what I look at Conor now, like the massive performances that he was always putting in. We haven't seen him reach those heights in recent games, and I often look and go, did he have any time to relax, to chill out, to recuperate from such a long season?
Yeah, well, I suppose Rory wanted them back in fairly quickly, and look, he had his reasons for doing that. Obviously, so that's his decision. But no, just to your point, Alison, about the injuries. I did, like in the match against Dublin in the league final. It was noticeable, obviously, that when Conor went off, Dublin got a couple of other goals anyway. On Saturday as well against Fermanagh, when he went off, that was the time that Fermanagh got the goals. Chrissy McKay didn't play against Dublin, and then I did notice on against Fermanagh as well. On the two goals that Fermanagh got, Chrissy was actually doing a man marking job on Ulster Championship and was actually had followed him out the field, so he wasn't in the area where the ball came in and where the goal was scored. So I think the two boys are vital to their defensive effort, and Conor, I think, is it's sort of sometimes a lot of his work goes unnoticed as well, and that it's not sort of that flamboyant stuff around the middle of the field and going forward at times, although he is very good at that as well. It's just a very unselfish role he plays for the team. He gets back and fills that space in front of the goals. He's very good at reading it. He just doesn't stand there. He's quick to come out. He's quick to double up on players. Obviously, he's good on the high ball, and he's good at just getting his hand in. So he is, he's a key player for them. And so obviously, and that's the thing, I suppose, with the way the season is. And I suppose it's the problem, in some ways with all the Ulster teams. The Ulster Championship is so competitive. To win the Ulster Championship, you have to play 2 or 3 high-octane games. And that only gets you then to the group stages like everybody else. You then have to play 3 games in that. You might have to play another game to get you through to a quarter final, which I think is the first weekend in July. So you have a serious amount of games to play to get that far. And as you say, we're already talking about teams picking up injuries. So what's it going to be like, 6-8 weeks down the line? And I think that is one thing that's going to have a major impact on the championship this year. And it'll just be a case of which team judges it best, and nobody really knows the answer at this stage. But the teams that arrive at a quarter-final weekend freshest with all their main players on board are obviously going to have an advantage, as long as they haven't undercooked and as long as they have enough hard games behind them. So at this stage, it's very hard to know what's the best route, and I suppose only time will tell.
I don't think we've been chatting to you, Malachy, since the All-Ireland Club final and the madness that ensued, the 16 men of Kilmacud Crokes. And I know your reaction immediately after the match was disappointment, I guess, first of all, based on the result, but then over the following days and even weeks, just the story grew legs and seemed to drag on forever. How do you feel about the whole thing now?
Yeah, it was disappointing the way it ended up, but I suppose you just at this stage we've got over it, we've parted, and we've just moved on, and I suppose it doesn't serve much purpose keeping on talking about it or anything else. But I suppose just at the time, we were disappointed with the way it ended up, and I suppose immediately after the game, if the GAA would have come in or Kilmacud would have said, we realised that it wasn't the way the game was supposed to finish, and offered a replay, I suppose you would have had to think about it seriously then, and possibly go for it. But once it dragged on and that wasn't the case, it was never going to be, we were going to get nothing from it at that stage, and to play the game at a later date when there was no appetite for it, it wasn't going to serve anybody any good. So we just, I think the club made the right decision and just said no. Look, we'll leave it and move on.
Yeah, there was a lot of drama around it, but I often thought it must have been so difficult for you as manager, for the players, for the supporters, for the club and Kilmacud as well. I just thought for the players and everybody involved in it, it must have been quite a difficult time.
Yeah, it was in a way, although I suppose there was a lot of noise going on outside, and it's like anything in the club, but it's like preparing for games or anything else. You just have to sort of divorce yourself from that and stay in your own bubble. And I think the club were very strong, and that straight away the club came out and said, "Look, we take our lead from the players and management. We'll back you 100%." And that's what the club did, and the club was really really strong. And they said, "Look, whatever you decide, we're prepared to back you." And the club were very united on it, and right from the word go, we said, look, whatever's the best thing for the club, it doesn't matter really what anybody else says or what anybody else's viewpoint is on it. That's really, it's immaterial to us. It was a case of whatever's the best thing for the club going forward, and that's what we based every decision on, and that's I suppose in the end up that's why we took the decision we did.
Well, I think the GA, a bit of grudge matches, never goes too far. It always helps the interest. So maybe next year we can get a rematch, Kilmacud Glen, and there'll be a bit of build up to that one, no doubt. Malachy, brilliant stuff as always. Thanks a million for your time.
Not at all. Thanks, Shane. See you, Aisling.
Thanks, Malachy.